The aircraft carrier USS Gerald R is the most expensive warship ever built. And now, after decades of work, it's ready to go. To date, $13 billion has been spent on the Gerald R. Ford project, which is about twice the cost of the previous Nimitz aircraft carrier. Throughout the years of reconstruction, this giant has experienced a lot of criticism. Some military experts agreed that the U.S. Navy simply did not need such expensive and complex aircraft carriers, that it was just a headache for the Pentagon, and that the idea would never pay off. But now, during the tense situation in the almost foreseeable future war between the United States and China over Taiwan, against the backdrop of the growing threat from Russia, it's clear that such weapons were vital. After all, what else can be countered by the most modern Chinese army, which has fifth-generation fighters and a large number of modern and modernized warships more than 7,000 miles from the U.S. coast? Today, you'll get acquainted with the world's largest warship, the ultra-modern third-generation aircraft carrier Gerald R. Ford CVN-78. The development of the most powerful aircraft carrier of the U.S. Navy began in the mid-1990s, and work on its construction began in 2005. It was supposed to replace the first American nuclear-powered aircraft carrier, the USS Enterprise, which had been in service since the early 1960s, had been in numerous military conflicts, and was decommissioned by the United States at the end of the ship's service life, which, by the way, is 50 years for both the Enterprise and the Ford. The task of the developers was to embrace as many of the latest technologies as possible, which made this giant so expensive and forced them to constantly extend the construction schedule. It had to have new electromagnetic catapults for launching aircraft and elevators for weapons, be equipped with a more powerful nuclear power plant than its predecessors, carry more aircraft, and have increased survivability. The idea of turning the Ford into an invisible ship using stealth technology was very desirable, but the designers abandoned it. It was too expensive, time-consuming, and complicated. However, the Ford was still made less visible compared to the Nimitz. Due to the fact that the new ship will require a 25% smaller crew compared to Nimitz-class aircraft carriers, it's planned to save up to $4 billion over its 50-year estimated service life. However, this has only been partially achieved. More than 4,500 people are responsible for the maintenance and management of the aircraft carrier, while on the Nimitz this figure reached 5,270 people. In order to save money, it was decided to keep the hull from the faithful Nimitz, only partially improving it for the sake of stealth, so they look very similar. The wheelhouse was placed closer to the stern, and the bridge was moved to the lower deck to reduce the size of the superstructure. The cabins and some living quarters were squeezed into the hull, and the superstructure was taken overboard. In summary, the 1,106-foot-long, 256-foot-wide, 130-foot-high Sea Giant did not become invisible. But on cruise missile radar, it's indistinguishable from the rest of the carrier strike group. What target to hit? You can't put a kamikaze on board. The ship's hull remains unchanged, but now it has two new A-1B nuclear reactors that produce a quarter more energy and are capable of propelling a 100,000-ton ship at 30 knots, 34.5 miles per hour. For example, in World War II, torpedo boats sailed at this speed in attack mode. As for the goal of increasing the number of aircraft on board, the Gerald R. Ford can accommodate up to 90 airplanes, helicopters, and drones. The list of equipment on board includes F-35C fighter bombers, FA-18EF Super Hornet attack aircraft, E-2D Advanced Hawkeye AWACS aircraft, and MH-60RS multi-role helicopters. In addition, we should also take into account attack drones. Such a large number of aircraft is key and can play into the hands of the United States in many situations. For example, Taiwan may have more fifth-generation fighters on one aircraft carrier alone than China has in total. In addition, as you know, aircraft take off from an aircraft carrier using a catapult, and an air finisher is used for landing. This feature determines the number of departures per unit of time, which is the most important characteristic of an aircraft carrier. Thanks to the use of an electromagnetic catapult instead of a classic steam catapult, 160 sorties per day have been achieved. And if the situation requires it, 220 sorties can be made. For comparison, the Nimitz was capable of only 120 sorties. In addition, the takeoff-landing system of the new aircraft carrier is twice as light. Given that catapults on aircraft carriers make up 20% of the total weight, this is a remarkable achievement. Speaking of the CVN-65 self-defense system, in addition to escort ships, it's armed with RIM-116 and RIM-162 anti-aircraft missile systems, which have a range of 10 and 50 kilometers respectively. The ship's defense system is also enhanced by a dual-band DBR radar system and identical systems installed on another U.S. Navy ship, the new generation DDG-1000 Zumwalt destroyer. Unfortunately, if you try to introduce too many new technologies, you have to be prepared to face malfunctions, which are inevitable in this case. Various types of malfunctions become apparent during the ship's first launch when experts discovered several problems with the takeoff and landing systems. First of all, the test results showed poor performance of the electromagnetic arrow finishers. The ship's designers claimed they would be able to accept 1,600 aircraft without fail, but in practice, this number did not exceed 25. At the same time, the electromagnetic catapult provided only 400 takeoffs instead of the claimed 4,000. When the sea trials began, the propeller shaft bearings quickly failed. The ship was returned to port, and it took several months to fix the problem. As of December 2018, 11 new electromagnetic lifts for moving ammunition to the flight deck were not working, but the engineers persevered, eliminating the identified shortcomings step by step. During the most extensive inspection in June 2021, everything from onboard computers to the nuclear reactor was checked after severe shocks, and the ability of the carrier's crew to repair any possible serious damage was also tested. At the same time, test underwater explosions were conducted off the coast of Florida, the effects of which were rated at 3.9 on the Richter scale. The aircraft carrier stood the test well. It's planned that the Gerald R. Ford will begin performing combat missions this year, for which the United States plans to build a total of 10 floating airfields. The next aircraft carrier of the Ford series, the John F. Kennedy, is scheduled to be commissioned in 2024, the last 10th in 2058. Thus, the Nimitz aircraft carriers will be replaced. At the moment, the United States with its Ford is out of competition. Even China and Russia, its main rivals, are far behind. Thanks to this development, the United States will have a worthy response to the quite possible aggression of huge authoritarian China. Also, let's not forget about nuclear blackmail by the Russian Federation, which also requires a worthy response and demonstration of its own strength. The United States now has 10 powerful aircraft carrier strike groups, the most powerful superpower in the world. No money is spared for this status. I'd like to hear your opinion on third-generation aircraft carriers. You think they were worth the money and time spent? Will these giants pay off over time, and was it a wise investment? We look forward to your comments below this video. Also, please don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give us your thumbs up. Be sure to turn on notifications if you don't want to miss the next video.